So now once it's on, I just shut it, like I exit out.
You gotta speak up, Ally.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
Goes right out.
Ally's,
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Okay, can everyone hear me?
now we can.
Almost.
Hi, sorry about that. I had to get YouTube started. Okay, so Craig Leggett,
Here.
Michael Biddle, Brian Campbell,
he joined us. He just stepped away from his mic.
okay, Mike Grasso, Mike Wild,
Here.
Jenny Sullivan. Here. Dan Bruno,
Here.
Bruce Ferguson, Nick Caimano,
Here.
Dave O'Brien.
Here. First item of business, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the November 16th board meeting. Do I have said motion?
Yeah, so moved.
Moved by Nick. Do I have a second? Dan Bruno? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I would like you to review the accounts payable.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Craig
Craig.
here. What, the bond insurance? That's the bond renewal. Is that, what does that cover?
We have bonds for a couple organizations. So it's insurance on the bonds to cover us.
In case they don't pay?
In case they don't pay.
Thank you.
I'll move.
Who's
I'll
moving?
second.
Moved by Nick, second by Craig.
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Brian Campbell. Is he back yet?
Not back yet.
Jenny Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Nick Caimano,
Yes.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes. Carried. Next order of business is the Nolan contract update. Kara, could you please explain that, because we need to repass the resolution to sell the piece of property to Nolan Propane.
Yeah, so we had previously approved the lot sale with their requests for changes. The Nolan had not yet executed the contract. Subsequent to our last approval, they sent further modifications, specifically requesting a request for a variance under the covenants of the covenants and restrictions that are set forth in the park. We believe this to be the last series of changes that they're requesting, and that we'll be able to proceed to the contract once we have satisfied their request for the variance. The variance is from section 2.01 of the, hang on, let me pull it here. Section 2.01 of the declaration, and that reads that no land shall be used for any purpose other than light manufacturing, assembly, research, or laboratory operation, as may be permitted by the IDA from time to time. Then there's a variance procedure that's set forth in Article 8 that indicates that the IDA reserves the right to grant variances to the restrictions that I just read upon a showing of need, reasonableness, and compatibility with other businesses in the park. The IDA previously had approved the same use for the park without a variance based on the language that was in the existing covenants, but their council has requested this. And so as long as you find this particular use to be compatible with the other uses in the park, then you have the authority to provide a variance for the language that doesn't specifically identify this particular business.
Any questions on, any questions for Kara? I'll entertain a resolution, motion to move the resolution by the county's Warren, Washington Industrial Development Agency approving and authorizing sale of property.
Okay.
Motion by Nick. Do I have a second?
Dan Bruno.
Second by Dan Bruno. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman,
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a brief discussion? I was holding my comments until we had the motion on the floor.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. My only question is, can someone please explain why we believe this is the description that Kara has just mentioned, our attorney, how it's compatible? So as we go forward approving this, we're also approving this compatibility issue with the zoning change, right?
There is no zoning change. It's a change to our own covenants.
Understood.
There is no required variance for zoning. This isn't permissible in the zoning for the town of Kingsbury. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if someone could help me understand the compatibility clause and the issue associated with compatibility, if there is one.
I will defer to Kara. I do know that previously 10 years ago, we'd approved already Bow Fuel to do the same. Actually, they were going to do more. They were also going to add fuel oil tanks to it. So we approved it. So there is precedent in doing this. But I will defer to Kara.
So I think that the language that's included in the resolution is a result of the previous approval process, because there was a prior same use approved in the park. Any other bases or reasoning that the board wants to use, that's totally within your discretion. So if you make a finding that it is not compatible with the other uses, then I would suggest that you don't recommend or approve the variance. But that's what the language in the covenants say. So anyone that is protected by these covenants could make a claim that they feel that this use is not compatible. But what their counsel is saying is that they would like this variance in place so that, you know, they feel comfortable that we've approved that variance. But the reasoning is a policy decision of this board.
So if I may, so the other tenants and owners of property nearby could challenge this decision. Is that true? Is that what I just heard you say?
Yeah, anyone that has these covenants and restrictions in their chain of title has the right to challenge, you know, any other property owner's use if they find or believe it to be in violation of the language that's set forth in these covenants. Similar to like a homeowners association, if you will.
So as a part of this, I do know, because I was there, that Nolan and his attorney have met with the town of Kingsbury, their fire department, their town board, their town supervisor, the planning, and their zoning and code enforcement person. And they discussed what they're going to do. They subsequently have also met with 3 of the neighbors at that project, or at that position. 2 of them, they're joining. Actually, all 3 are joining, explain their position, explain what was there. So they have reached out and do it. So could they potentially? Yes. But I think that based on what the IDA has already done in the past is to approve this type of use in the project. I feel that we have a defensive position to do that.
So, Mr. Chairman, my only reason for bringing this up is I recall we had some discussions a while back regarding insurance, and Mr. Grasso was in here, but one of the questions was, are the neighboring properties going to have significant increases in their insurance because of just the potential of an explosive type situation next door? And I don't recall if we ever got that resolved.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I can answer it, Mr. Wild. If they have visited the near neighbors and they didn't raise any question, I would assume that they would have already done that themselves if they had any problems. We haven't heard any problems in that way, have we?
Not,
So I'm just making sure we don't take that ability for the neighbors to object away by making this motion. But if council says that that's not the situation, then I'm in favor of moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, if I could have a minute, please.
yes, Jack.
Yeah, Mr. Wild, as it relates to the insurance issue, I did take that back to Mr. Nolan, and he has two advisors that work with him that are experts in the field. And that is the first that they had ever heard of that, but I got feedback afterwards. They went to Mr. Nolan's insurance company and posed that question, and they did not know of any situation where neighbors' insurance had been increased because of the construction of a facility of this type. I didn't get it in writing. I did pose the question in writing, but that was the answer. And I don't think that also that you're talking about an explosive situation. I don't think that there's been recent knowledge where these devices explode at all.
Mike, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. Again, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I'm sorry for taking so much time. Kara, this doesn't preclude the neighboring properties to voice objections. Is that true?
Correct. They're not,
Okay.
they can raise an objection now or in the future or.
Okay. Thank you. I'm in favor.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. I don't think we have any updates in Tom Robinson.
No, and I called and left a message at his house again just before the board started. So no, I don't have a response.
We do have a couple other people looking at the properties down there, but that's just initially starting, so we'll keep up on that.
And Mr. Chairman, I don't know, have you distributed the map that I prepared that shows the 3 small lots that are currently available when you take into consideration the amount of wetlands that are on the property?
I have not, but I will.
Okay, and then if anyone has any questions after they see that map, please feel free to contact me if you would, please.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is I'm going to skip down to, we have 2 project approvals. The first one is a Tane project in Chestertown. That's up for, we've had our public hearing, received no feedback during the public hearing. So that's up. You have a resolution moving forward on toward an undertaking a certain project is defined herein, appointing KDBF Ventures as agent of the agency for the purpose of constructing and equipping the project facility as defined herein, and authorizing the execution and delivery of an agent agreement, closing documents by and between the agency and the company. So I will entertain a motion on this, and then we go to discussion. Motion by Craig. Do I have a second? Michael Biddle. Discussion. Having heard no discussion, I will request a roll call vote on this one, please.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Ginny Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Nick Caimano,
Yes.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes. Carried. Moving on, we have one more project approval. Adirondack Winery. The title will read the same, except we're saying it's with appointing Adirondack Winery as agent of the agency for the purpose of constructing and equipping the project facility is defined herein and authorizing execution and delivery of an agent agreement, closing documents by and between the agency and the company. So we again had a public hearing on this. We had no discussion from the public on this, or no questions from the public. So having said that, I would ask for a motion to move this resolution.
So moved, Chairman. Michael Biddle.
Michael Biddle.
I'll second it as a former wine drinker.
Former, second, okay. Any questions, discussions? Again, ask for a roll call, please.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Ginny Sullivan,
Abstain.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Nick Caimano,
Yes.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes. Carried. Moving on, I would like to move to the application by George, votes by George, and move that one first. So George, if you would take a few minutes to describe to the board pretty much what we talked about at the executive committee meeting, what your project plans are, what your future is, why you're undertaking the project, and why do you think that financial assistance will benefit you in moving forward with this project. So, George.
I'm here.
There you are.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm George Pencil, Boats by George. We've been in business now almost 40 years in Queensbury. And we expanded off into Fort Anne in 2016 in a joint project we did with you. We have been growing, and our headquarters on Route 149 behind the Logjam Restaurant we've outgrown them. Our showroom is too small, and however, the facilities are still very handy for us. We're growing so quickly, and we've had our eyes on the Lake George Forum since it's been dormant for the past 3-4 years. In the meantime, I took on a project and purchased a marina in Warner Bay, and then found myself ready to move on this project in 2020. What we're trying to do is convert the current facilities as a boat showroom and administrative offices and relating accessories showroom. The project itself, it requires quite an investment in the core of the facility, such as heating and lighting and maintaining an efficient running building, as opposed to what we're taking on, an ice rink. As we have grown over the last 40 years, we have grown in our facilities, and we have grown in our employment of good local people. Back in 2016, when we took on the project of the service center, we had have expanded 10 employees since then. Could not have done this expansion without this new service center. We built 3 buildings in the initial, 4 buildings in the initial construction, totaling 37,000 square feet. Since then, we built 2 more buildings, a storage building and a service building. So our total square footage is in the neighborhood of 55,000 square feet of buildings on that Fort Ann piece of property. The current showroom that we're in and facility has, basically 3 sales offices, and an F&I office, and then our administrative offices, where the forum will add 3 new salesperson offices, along with an expanded sales, what can I say, coordination office, and what we call F&I, finance and insurance. It'll allow us to display closer to 40 or 50 boats as opposed to 15 or 20 in our current showroom. Our business has, over the years, we found drawn, as time went on, we began serving lakes further distant from our home location. Customers in Burlington, Vermont, on Lake Champlain, in Fourth Lake, up in the Adirondacks and Lake Placid, down as far south as and southwest is Otsego Lake. So we've become a destination. We are the only dealer for those product lines that we offer, for the most part, well within the economic region of the Industrial Development Agency of Warren, Washington County. But well beyond that. That's basically, in a nutshell, what's happening. Any questions?
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, one of the things I happened to be at your executive meeting, and one of the things that was brought up there, which is a very good thing, is that Mr. Pencil now has an opportunity to have a year-round boat show, if you will. And this is just one more step for us in Warren County and in Lake George area specifically, to keep moving throughout the winter season.
Yeah, the original boat, 149, that was a good size facility. But this is really going to be a boat show. In fact, the forum, I was in the first boat show that was in the forum. I think it was the only one. Then, of course, our Adirondack Sports Complex, I think, went down last week. I don't know if it'll go back up or not. That's been a great venue for the Albany dealers and all our dealers in the region. But yeah, we'll be having the year-round boat show. We're the home of the year-round boat show, Boats by George.
Dave, your mic's off. Your mouth's up. Yours. There you go.
Am I back on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ally. I think one of the questions came up during your executive meeting is that this is not a walk-in place. I mean, the size, the style of your boats. It's not people off the street coming in to look at those, though they may, but those people who are looking for these boats are one are going to come from almost the entire state of New York, state of Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. Was that where I heard a lot of your business was coming from? And they're making a purposely stop to come to see your, see the boats you have to offer. And one of the advantages of this property would be to be able to have the boats in stock versus a 1 to 2 year waiting time for the boat. So I'm sorry, George, go ahead.
Well, yeah. We've had people fly in from California. We market on the World Wide Web. We have product lines that are very distinctive brands in the country. You know, you want a Cobalt boat and you're on Lake Champlain and you live in Burlington, Vermont, you got to come down and see me. And people come down twice. They come down at least twice. They come down at least to look and to buy. And then every boat we deliver out of state or out of the area, we insist that these consumers come back when the boat goes in the water at our marina and that they get their first cruise on Lake George. And that allows us to familiarize them with what they're getting, make sure everything is the way they expect it to be before we go through the lengthy and costly transport of something a distance. So it's more than one visit. And up in the North Country, you know, it's a seasonal business, more so than down in the South. But the lead times to get these boats are very lengthy, and in the next 12 months, that may be a little bit of an issue. But hopefully, once we get through the pandemic, that problem will be resolved, and the vendors will be in better shape to get product out to us. But you know, right now, my like Chris Craft models are out until September, October of 2021, as far as getting delivered.
Any other questions for George? I don't see any questions. So, and you have a resolution, and the resolution is to accept the application from Boats by George and to set the public hearing for Boats by George. So can I have a resolution to initiate?
Move it, Dave.
Ryan, do I have a second? A second by Dan Bruno. Need a roll call vote on this one also?
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Ginny Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Nick Caimano,
Yes.
David Bryan.
Yes. George, thank you. We'll let you know when the public hearing is and go from there.
Thank you all very much, and Merry Christmas.
Our hope is to have the public hearing on the 6th of January and have a special meeting after that to take action.
Super.
Okay.
We need all the help we can get with this project, believe me. It's big.
Feedback I've gotten from people in Lake George is they're excited that someone's going to put productive use to that facility. And that while they wish to have more use such as ice time and other things, they realize its structure just doesn't really lend itself to that.
Yeah, I kind of have thought about it myself, you know, after I bought it or I contracted to buy it and do this. And a couple of times I said, Wonder if I should go back to ISUN. But that's not a business I know anything about. I know a lot about boats. So that's probably where I'm going to stay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, George. Moving on, we now have resolution accepting the application for financial assistance submitted by Fowler Square LLC, the company relating to a certain project, authorizing a public hearing with respect to the project and describing the financial assistance being contemplated by the agency with respect to the project. Having said that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris to give us his information, what he's doing, why it's there, why based on his situation at this point that he feels that financial assistance will help him complete this project. Chris?
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody. I'm Chris Falvey of Rossetti Properties. We're a third generation real estate development company based in Albany. We own and operate over 1,000 apartments and about 450,000 square feet of commercial space. We own properties in Albany, Rensselaer, and Saratoga counties. We're hands-on owners, and we saw an opportunity at the corner of Blind Rock and Bay, and it took us a little bit of time to get there, but we structured a deal with the sellers, and we closed on the property in November, and we're excited to build it. Fowler Square, the project is going to be 142 apartments. In the phase that we're contemplating now, 5,000 square feet of commercial space, a 7,800 square foot clubhouse, and a 55 car indoor parking garage. The main building, which site work has commenced and some of the concrete flat work has started, that building is about 116,000 square feet, 3 floors. The top 2 floors will house 36 apartments each floor. And the bottom floor will have our clubhouse, which will include our manager's office, leasing agent's office, a community gathering room, a fitness room with cardio equipment, a yoga studio, a gathering space, and a mailroom. That'll be that portion of the building, the clubhouse building will be on the corner of Blind Rock and Bay. As you go down Bay, in the middle of the building, there'll be a 55 car parking garage. And on either wing, there'll be 2,500 square foot spaces for lease. We're not looking for retail. We're looking for service, professional office related space. And we've already had some inquiries, but we're not in a position to do any leasing yet. The building has to get up first. In the back of the project, we have 9 additional buildings. 8 of those are 8-unit buildings, and the other building is a 6-unit. So there'll be 70 townhouse style apartments, all with direct access garages. And they will offer a lot of square footage, probably 1,500 to 1,800 square feet on average.
So Chris?
We expect, I'm sorry, Dave?
Chris, if I could have Allie put up the pictures you sent me today, so as a little bit to help you illustrate what your project is.
Can everyone see that? Can you see it, Dave?
Yes.
Yes, I can see it.
So that's the
So-
8 unit?
Yes, correct. That's the 8-unit building. You can see the garages. There's 4 units upstairs and 4 on the first floor. And again, all the garages, you can pull into your garage and walk directly into your apartment. There's no shared hallways in those buildings.
Could you show us the other building, please?
And that's the main, obviously, 3-story building. So that The corner that you're looking at now would be the corner that you see if you're traveling north on Bay Road. You would make a left into the project and this building would be on your right. You can see on the end there, there's an oversized garage door. So that would be the exit. It's one-way traffic through the garage. That would be the exit door. To the left of that, there'd be a rental space. And to the right of that, as you go down, again, parallel with Bay Road, that would be the garage till you get about 3/4 of the way down the building.
That gray building that we're looking at right there, that's actually up today. At least the structure is up with plastic around it. Is that right?
They're doing as much as they can given the weather. But yeah, we're going full ahead on that building.
Okay, thank you.
So the reason that we're here in front of the IDA is we're seeking financial assistance to help cover the rapidly rising costs of construction and the materials associated with it. COVID has certainly played a part in disrupting the construction supply chain, and the materials that you can get are a whole lot more expensive than they were a year ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago. I referenced last week at the executive meeting a memo that Curtis Lumber had sent out where they articulated the expected increases in all the materials across the board. Lumber is an outlier as it has increased 89% since the early summer, but just about every other material item is going to see at least a 6 to 10% increase. There's a $36 million budget, construction budget. So, an 8% increase is a big number. And we're seeking help from the IDA to help offset that increase and enable us to go ahead and continue to build the project in a first-class manner, which is really the only way we know how to build. We think this is a unique property, a unique project because of the upscale nature of it. There's really not too many other projects in or around Queensbury that offer the amenities that we're going to offer. And again, we think the assistance will help us out greatly in being able to maintain what we set out to build.
But in terms of where your project, I know you take a look at this probably every single day, and you run the numbers in your head as you try and sleep. What would the impact of this cost should we not be able to provide you assistance in this project?
Well, the potential impacts, Dave, would be, we could choose not to build the townhouse apartments in the back, and play the waiting game to see if prices come back down, or we could go ahead and kind of change gears and bring the project down a little bit in terms of the size and the quality and the amenities. We've employed BBL to run the job for us, and they run a first-class job. Not all the contracts have been awarded yet, but the contractors that we have bidding and that have been awarded the jobs are first-rate contractors, a lot of them local. In Warren County alone, to date, we have over $5 million in awarded projects. If we change gears and kind of drop down what we're going to do in the back, my guess is, we'd probably get more journeyman type contractors, not so much of the locals. And it would be a shame because it would change the tone of the project completely. Or like I said, we could just, we'd we could always just not build it and leave it vacant.
Dan Bruno?
Couple questions. Why do you say that, your comment just now about not employing local contractors if you change the scope or character, the nature of the project? What was that?
Well, I think, you know, if we went down to, say, a vinyl siding, if you will, you know, not to pick on vinyl siding in particular, but, you know, vinyl's not the quality that, you know, we're going to have a hardy board type of material with some masonry products. If we go to more of a residential build, I guess, you know, you're not going to be attracting the commercial contractors as much as the residential, and the residential's kind of, you know, it can, like right now, it's very tough. It's very tough to get a vinyl siding contractor. We have a project in Guilderland where we have vinyl siding on some townhouses that we're building, and you can't find a vinyl sider right now.
The other question, what did you say was the increase in the cost of lumber from when, July or August? What percentage?
On April 10th, so Curtis sent out this memo, and they quote the Random Lengths Framing Lumber Composite. It's like a lumber index, if you will. On April 10th, it was $348. It's currently $659. In mid-September, it was $955.
Right.
They're projecting that it's going to increase from the $659 that it is right now. I mean, if you take 659 and compare it to the April number of 348, that's an 89% increase.
Right.
Again, that's an outlier. If everything was increasing 89%, I wouldn't be on this call right now. Sure.
Just one other question, which really doesn't have much to do with anything, but where does the name Fowler Square come from?
It comes from the PUD that the town approved. I honestly don't know exactly where Fowler came from. So we're buying the project from Queensberry Partners, Tom Longi, Dan Galusha, and Bob Manns. They put the name on the project. I believe they put it on. It may have been the people before them back in probably 2008, 2010.
Yeah, just curious. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Craig, I saw your hand, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When there's IDA involvement, does prevailing wage come into play for the builder, for the contractor, the company?
I'll refer that to Karen.
Not yet. There is legislation that has been enacted that will apply to certain IDA projects, but that is not yet finalized. That is not, well, it's finalized, but it won't apply to these projects being approved.
Yeah. Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, we had that inter-county legislative meeting last month, and remember when they gave the talk, maybe it was Fulton County, and they had used drones on their to spec out some of their IDA properties, and it seemed to be that those IDAs were pretty well involved with housing type units through there. Am I correct on that? Do you remember? Or Brian, he was in that meeting too. It's just, yeah, just to draw some parallels.
Yeah, I remember some about it, Craig, but I'm limited too.
Okay.
I do know that we have helped Hoffman, excuse me, we have helped some other people in mixed use properties. This being one of the larger ones, we have done that. I've also talked to Glensfall's IDA, and they have also done, and Kara has verified this, they've also done some mixed use properties and assist them also. So we don't feel this is out of line. And I would like to take this opportunity to ask Kara a question. And the question is why is this type of project eligible for IDA assistance?
If the board makes a finding that this particular project will benefit the economic development within the community, within the region, then mixed use projects such as this with a predominant housing component, if you will, have been upheld as suitable, appropriate projects for the IDA to consider. So the test here is that this project will help maintain economic development within the community by, having people who live in this area, shop in this area, work in this area, utilize the services, et cetera, for growth in the community.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman? Yeah. A question for Kara too. Kara, I wasn't on the IDA then. Well, Highland was a PUD, and were we involved? Was the IDA involved at that time? Do you remember? With Highland?
I don't.
I don't. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Chairman, it's Mike Wild.
Yes, Mike.
I do have a question about how do we measure this community benefit? So typically there's a number of jobs that are created, or there's some other measures that we use to ensure that the benefits we anticipated were realized. What are those on this project? Because one of the things we do, and if I can continue on, is if those benefits aren't realized, then we can recover the benefits.
Correct.
Considered that in certain instances. So I'm just curious, how do we determine whether or not this project has delivered what they said they were going to do? And I do have another follow-on question. Is the benefits that we're providing, are they for the whole project? Or are they just for phase one, and then we have more benefits for phase two, phase three, whatever that breakdown is? But more importantly, I'm curious about the measurements.
So in terms of our application also included the fact that we're going to create X number of jobs. I think the number was 6 to begin with.
Go.
Okay, I'm trying to go here. Recap.
I think Mike.
I'm sorry. Recapture is the correct term for it. Yes, we do the recapture. So I think that what we're looking at is we're looking to approve the entire project. At this point, it will be done in three phases. I will let Chris explain that. But we're trying to do a blanket approval of the whole project, then we'll do schedules for each one of them. So what you see on the sheets is what the total benefit would be in terms of that. So I wanted to say that in terms of it, we'll look at, did they complete the phases they promised to based on the phases? So we'll look at that to look at if recapture is possible. I will stress that the mission of the IDA is economic development for this area. Jobs is only one measure of it. The other measure is, are they delivering what they promised? Are they delivering the quality they promised? Are they delivering what they said they did? In this case, the phase one and phase two, and potentially phase three of the project. So those would be the measurements we make. If they don't meet those, we would have to go back and recapture what they don't apply for, what they don't succeed in putting up. So that was what we would do along there. And I think this project will probably be a couple of years through the IDA before the full thing comes to fruition.
So we do have measures that we can point to in a contract or somewhere that says these are the deliverables that they're going to have, or is it something vague that would be unenforceable?
Kara, I'll let you answer that question.
So typically in your policy, and I don't know exactly where you keep it, but it's part of the recapture policy where as part of the approval process, you're required to identify material factors or terms for the project that must be complied with in order for the project to maintain its benefits. And your recapture policy indicates a certain percentage threshold that must be met. So in most of the projects that you approve, you are approving them with material factors of private investment and job creation. So as you know, the job creation numbers are submitted each year by the company. So then those are verified as whether or not those numbers have been met. The private investment item is determined once the project is complete and new. So we haven't done this for a lot of projects because the legislation just amended to require these, well, not just, but within the last couple of years. So a lot of your projects haven't reached this 2-year period where you're going to review these items. But for the private investment, we would reach back out to the company, ask them to indicate to us the total cost of their project and their private investment that they made with the project to verify that that's that amount. Now that's up to the IDA board, how much verification you want. Is an affidavit sufficient? Do you want to see more detailed information regarding what's been paid or not? But those are two of the factors that are most often used. Certainly, if there's other factors that you as a board want to include in the approval, that is certainly within your discretion to say, you know, so, I think you also have in there to renovate a dilapidated building, brownfield, things like that are in the list, but certainly it's in your discretion to create any sort of criteria that you would like to monitor. You know, but then if you're going to say you're going to monitor it, then you've got to be sure to monitor that throughout the project.
Thank you, Kara.
Mr. Chairman, as a follow-up then, I would like to see if we could put something in the agreement that says the total number of units are going to be this, and this is what those units are, and the total square footage of commercial space. And I would be in support of this. Just like to have some measures.
We can certainly get those done by the time we get the approval done. My goal is to have a public hearing on the 6th of January and go to approval, have a special meeting to do the approval process. So yes, we can work on that, Mike.
If that's agreeable to the applicant.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the mortgage tax, this has already gotten started. The property is closed upon. I know that other projects have had problem with that as part of the timing. Is that an impediment on mortgage at this point?
I'll let Chris answer his financing questions.
Yes, we have closed on it. We closed on the purchase of the land. I believe the way that it's structured, the savings on the mortgage tax is when you close with your lender. Is that not correct?
That's correct. That's
okay.
correct.
So,
is that on completion? Like, are you working on construction loans, that type of thing, and then you turn into a full mortgage? Is that the timing?
Yeah, you typically get a construction lender who may or may not be your permanent lender.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, part of the reason why we don't my name is Gene Sneeringe. I'm counsel to Chris Falvey. You know, part of the reason why we can't at this point in time address financing is because our lenders are hoping that the agency will provide this financial assistance, which then shows further support of the community for the project. And so it's a matter of building on the blocks before we actually get a commitment for financing.
Thank you, Gene. Any other questions? Then I'll ask for a motion to move this resolution.
So moved, Mike Grasso.
Yes, Mike.
I'll second.
Moved. I'll move it.
Second, motion by Mike, second by Nick Camano. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Mike Grasso,
Yes.
Jenny Sullivan,
Abstain.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Rick Caimano,
Yes.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes. Carries. Thank you, Chris, for your attendance, and thank you, Gene, for being here tonight. We'll be in touch with you details for the next process.
Great. Thank you very much.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you very much. Happy holidays.
I have a quick question. Mike Grasso, are you hiding under under a candle or what? Oh, there he is.
I'm driving in my car. This is rather dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that red light behind you. I didn't know it was a cop.
Okay. Moving on, going back up to the, going back to old business to start again, is that we did get the National Grid grant approval. We have signed the grant to accept the grant. So that is in place. I want to remind you that we're looking at a combination of USDA grant plus a National Grid grant to do two things. First is do a feasibility study on the use of the facility, what the infrastructure is, what the benefits of, or what the target market should be to develop that area. When we talk about developing that area, we not only talk about the so-called dewatering facility, but we also talk about how we end up looking at potentially developing the 330 acres owned by WCC Plastics, or not WCC Corporation, sorry. I still got WL Plastics on my mind. So WCC, in terms of that, part of that's also to look to evaluate potential use of part of that property for a composting facility, potentially for Warren and Washington County. There has been some discussion about needs for composting facilities. There's one of the things that the study, as long as we're doing it, is going to look at to see is that a potential use of that property, and what are the other uses of property. So as part of that, we're looking at, we received 4 RFPs, and I think I know the ones we got. We got a proposal from Alan, got a proposal from Bergman, we got a proposal from Chazen Corporation, we got a proposal from Sampson and Watson, or Watson and Sampson. I can't remember which way is first. I have a meeting with Laura Roswald, our Economic Development Coordinator from Washington County. We also have Beth Gillis from the Lake George Regional Champlain Regional Planning Board, myself, Joe Brilling, to look at evaluating that for the infrastructure and for which company would do, we feel, the best job and has the best handle on what we're looking to achieve. And then we'll, from there, we'll approach the final 2 or so to evaluate what they're doing and then make a recommendation to the board who we're going to go with. So that's in terms of that. As part of that, National Grid is also going to pay for the portion of the pre-engineering for the on the bridge, so we can apply to EDA for a matching grant to the NBRC, so that we can look at doing, number 1, fund the sewer study to look at how we get sewer into that facility, because that's one of the most important pieces of that pie. And second, how to fund the construction of the bridge. So we're doing that and looking at that for that. So we need the pre-engineering of the bridge before we can apply for the EDA grant. So that bid, I think we talked about last time, was we had 2 bids in, one from Creighton Manning and one from another company, which I CGI. GPI. So looking at it. So any questions on what we discussed on that? Any questions on where we're going? Yes, Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with the pre-engineering that would be done by Creighton Manning or GPI, then we can go forward with the next round and the next phase. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
I do want to emphasize that, as most grants that you're familiar with, that these are reimbursement grants. So we do the project, we get billed. On USDA, it's my understanding we can bill on an incremental basis. So that if we get bills from whoever we select to do the feasibility study, we can pay those and we can apply for reimbursement. We do have the funds in our checking account or CDs, which with these two grants is about $200,000. We can fund those ourselves for reimbursement. I'd rather do that than borrow money. If we do go to the engineering study and we do go to the bridge study, we will probably have to look at bonding unless we get some windfalls someplace to bond that money and so we can pay for it and get reimbursed. So I just want to make sure people understand these are all reimbursement grants. I think most people are familiar with the way grants work this day. But before we move forward, I want to make sure people understand that. Any comments? Okay, thank you. So I would like a motion to move ahead with the lowest bidder, Creighton Manning, to do the pre-engineering, award the pre-engineering to them so they can get started now. Motion by Brian. Do I have a second?
Second by Craig.
Craig Leggett. Roll call, please.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Mike Grasso.
I think his car got the better of him.
He crashed.
Yeah.
Nice.
Who else?
Ginny,
Yes.
I don't know.
Mike
He's
Wild,
not on there anymore.
Sorry, yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Nick Caimano,
Yes.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes. Carried, so award the bid and move forward with them. Sales and marketing, we still haven't, we do need to have another meeting. But we'll set that up sometime in January. We move forward with that.
Well, it's not that, you should also mention, it's not that we're not doing anything, because we are. You send me a little telegram and I go out with my baseball bat and then we send out the stuff from the office.
Correct. And some companies take us up on it. Some companies have passed. It is part of the IDA reaching out to the community to find ways we can assist them. Yeah. So we'll do that. I will say that I think that based on our success in reaching out and getting our name in the community, I really think that we should consider putting on a staff person, working with EDA or EDA, not EDA. ECO? EDC and the Glens Falls IDA and other parties to market this area. I think we can bring some other some people in.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Biddle.
could I suggest you add the Adirondack Regional Chamber to that list?
Well, I was waiting for you to mention it.
Oh, thank you so much. Merry Christmas, Mr. Chairman.
That might be a conflict. We might not be able to do that.
Only if you shave.
Okay, good. Regulatory member training, Kat, what's your name?
Allie.
Allie,
Yes.
Allie.
Okay, every meeting, you guys get one of these. Take a look at it where your name is and find out where you're at as far as status goes for regulatory training. I want to thank Mr. Losa for completing his ABO training in December. Kudos.
Have I dropped off the list yet, Allie?
You are all red, my dear.
If we don't get re-upped for next year, never mind. All right, thank you.
No danger of that, Biddle. Okay, so she'll be after you and don't get her dander up too much or she'll come after you. She'll get her big truck Jesse and come after you.
Oh my God, stop. Go, 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 go.
Okay. 2021 meeting schedules and holidays. You have that sent out to you. I needed a motion to approve those times and meeting dates. Motion by Mr. Biddle. Do I have a second? Mr. Campbell, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Member surveys.
Yes, also in that packet, when I sent this Zoom meeting info out, I realized there was a lot of attachments. I apologize, we was just a very busy meeting. But what I did, this looks a little bit different than what you guys are used to seeing. I combined the IDA and CDC, same questions, just different spots to answer them. I thought maybe it might be easier. It would be great if everybody could participate this year. Thank you.
Okay. Only takes a couple minutes, guys.
What?
Maybe I'll have to schedule a special meeting just to do all these things.
Maybe, that hasn't been sent out yet, or has it?
It was sent out with this Zoom meeting information
Right.
along with all the attachments. So if you need it sent again, just by itself, let me know. Actually, you know what? I'll just go ahead and do that anyway for y'all.
Okay, thank you.
You're the best.
Okay.
I'll
moving on.
send you my ABO training.
I'm sorry.
I just sent you my ABO training, so
Oh,
I'm all up to date.
awesome. Thank you. It is a good Christmas.
Wait a minute, Grasso did not crash. There he is.
I'm here.
He's back.
Just about.
Okay. We sort of lost him in the middle of that too. Next is
The internet in Queensbury, in Lake George, is woefully deficient. It comes and goes. So every time I lose you, I have to dial back in. It's just a pain in where.
Wow.
okay. Greenwich Preservation Tax Exempt Extension, Greenwich Preservation in Greenwich. Greenwich, New York, in Washington County, is requesting extension of the sales tax. You have a resolution extending the authorization for sales tax exemption. I think that they were caught up in, they've actually asked for several extensions. I think their project was caught up in the COVID and they weren't able to complete and open what they looked at. So they're looking for an extension. So I would entertain a resolution to take action to extend the authorization for sales tax exemption to the Greenwich Preservation.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Moved by Mr. Biddle. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Grasso. Any further discussion? We should have a roll call on that, please.
Okay. Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Ginny Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Nick Camano,
Okay.
Dave O'Brien.
Okay. Carried. Ally, do you want to talk about ICC4 late tax payments?
Okay, yes. So some of you weren't at the executive park meeting when this was brought up. So just to briefly explain what was discussed at that meeting. We have this one particular project, ICC4 West Main. The Cambridge is the project. They have been very late with their school taxes and their village taxes. Village taxes are now 6 months late. School taxes are 3 months late. And we had discussed possibly sending legal information about possible recapture due to their default in payment. But when I spoke with the Washington County Treasurer, Mr. Nolet, about getting accurate numbers at this point with the penalties that are incurred, they are so late that they couldn't even pay right now if they wanted to, because these past due taxes are being rolled over into the town and county taxes for 2021. So I'm waiting until the county can give me the numbers for that before we can be in any kind of correspondence with them, because I want to make sure that he has the most accurate information as possible for what he does owe the IDA.
That should be available this week because tax bills are just going out.
Okay, he said he would get a hold of me as soon as he had that information.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Biddle.
Sir, do we have procedures on people that are late on their taxes?
Yes, we can institute recapture. And I think that the amount of time this gentleman has been seriously past due, and again, some of their taxes are over 6 months past due, is that our recommendation, and actually Kara has actually drafted a letter to them, that if they don't pay by X date, we're going to institute recapture, cancel the project, we're going to reinstitute. We're going to ask for recapture of all benefits awarded to them over the course of this project. A couple people have reached out to him, and we still haven't gotten any response back from them.
You had mentioned there's a date that Miss Kara, did you set a date for that? And what is that date?
We haven't set a date.
We didn't set it yet because of the county won't accept the payment. So we were going to have them come to this meeting to discuss, but in like situation with the county not accepting the taxes, we're going to defer that to get a final number. That said, the fact that the county can't accept them shouldn't preclude the IDA from going after these and collecting them and holding them in escrow.
Correct.
Just because the company, we can't turn it over to the county. If the company is willing to pay us, we should take it. If we hold it, then we have to hold it. And then turn it.
Okay.
So could we make the date tomorrow?
I think we have more than tomorrow.
Heard
I
on
think when we send the letter, we probably need a couple of weeks.
I understand, businesses are struggling. I think we all understand that, especially through COVID. Where I get disappointed is when we've done multiple reach outs. And from what I understand, Mr. Chairman or Ally, you had said that nobody's returned any calls. Is that the case?
I have not heard from him at all.
Okay.
Mr. Griffith was supposed to talk to him, but I did not hear where he ended up. Is anyone else?
No, sir.
He did not. They were supposed to do he's grieving his taxes, which would have nothing to do with this at this point.
Right.
And he was supposed to be involved in it, so I was going to reach out to him. I will reach out to Jimmy and see what he's got to say.
Okay.
Could we put a date at pending some miracle from Mr. Griffith, Supervisor Griffith of White Creek? Could we agree to the soonest date possible to send out to maybe to send out for recapture to shake the trees here and push for discussion?
Do you mean a Merry Christmas letter?
I would say we got the figures that we should send that out by the end of the month, which is next week. So we just have the right figures.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying so early as possible, whatever that date is, earliest possible date. I would urge Chairman and the board to push forward to push for recapture and discussion. Discussion hopefully from the customer.
And we can have them come to our next board meeting.
Yes.
Plan yourself, give them a deadline of the 15th of January and have them come to our board meeting, explain why it's not keeping current and that we're going to reinstitute process. But they are they probably have been, most likely been affected by COVID, but they're a assisted residents and stuff like that. So they're still getting assistance to their project. So for income, so we look at it. Okay, so taken care of, or will be taken care of. The road. We've been talking to Mr. O'Connor and WCC about transfer of the properties. We have finally come to resolution on what is called the easement and maintenance of Lock 8 Way, that they will have a permanent easement to use it. They will also share in the expenses of maintaining that property. We also have the agreement of FELDPC, and I'll run through the numbers in a second. FELDPC, of what their percentage was and what our percentage would be. So with that, today we received an email that recommended to his client that he sign this easement agreement and move forward to transfer the properties. So we hope to complete those by the by in the first week of January. That's our target. With that, I will need a resolution to approve the easement agreement concerning Lock 8 Way. And I wanted to go down through some of the highlights of it to make sure you understood it. Is number one, I want to emphasize that the IDA has, at this point, has zero interest in the property owned by Fort Edward LPDC. We don't own it. We don't have an option on it. We don't have anything on it. There still is $1 million owed in taxes, which is why we have not reached out to take that facility and start develop that facility. We have to overcome that. If we remember with WL Plastics, the proposition was that the WL Plastics would buy a piece of the property, the IDA would take over the balance of property and develop and market the rest of the property. So until we come to conclusion on how we're going to deal with the taxes, we still don't have an interest in that. We own none of those taxes. I want to make sure people understood that. Within this, we will own Lock 8 Way from 196 into the facility. The goal is to transfer the property in the town of Fort Edward to the town of Fort Edward after we get the complete ownership of the property, transfer that to the town of Fort Edward in probably when they can take it, which would be April, May, June. They have agreed to maintain that piece of that piece of the road from the Kingsbury line to the facility. In anticipation of receiving that, we do have an agreement with them for $3,000 a year for them to plow our piece of the road in there. Right now, in the last snowstorm, I saw that Canal Corp went out and plowed it. So if they do, that's fine, and we relieve the Fort Edward from some of the work to do that. But that's the agreement in place. So walking through the rest of this, to give them access to the facility every year I'll go back. Fort Edward LBDC, WCC, and the agency shall pay its respective pro rata share defined below the cost associated with operation, maintenance, repair, and general upkeep of the existing roadway. Any improvements, equipment, and facilities are pertinent to the existing roadway, including without limitation the existing bridge on the portion of the existing roadway located in the town of Kingsbury, so as to keep and maintain the roadway and roadway improvements at all times in good condition of state of repair. Now, later on August 1st, the agency will provide to Fort Edward LBTC and any successors and WCC a proposed budget for the above described expenses anticipated for the succeeding calendar year. Each of Fort Edward LBC and WCC shall act reasonably no later than 15 days following receipt of proposed budget. Notify agency in writing that it approves the proposed budget, whether it requires modifications to proposed budget. And then we'll come to agreement in a 15-day period of time. There are provisions for emergency maintenance of the road in here. The agency is allowed to contract for, and each of the agency contract for the work and emergency work, like I described. In terms of that, requirement to pay, pro rata share, which was the large hang up to this, is that the first thing is initially that 41.666% of the maintenance would belong to Fort Edward LPDC. 16.666 as to WCC, and 41.66% to the agency. In the event that the FELDBC is subdivided, said 41.66 shall be allocated to each subdivided lot of the FELDBTC site based on each subdivided lot's assessed value. In the event that there's a sale of the WCC site in whole or in part that results in increased traffic on the existing roadway, 2, the wharf is used for shipping by WCC LLC, and or 3, there's an increase in volume of materials being handled pursuant to the rail line service agreement dated December 5th, 2016. Then the pro rata shares will go to 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. There's insurance requirements. There's requirement for dedication, public funding. What happens if the road is dedicated sorry, lost my train of thought for a second. In case the complete road is dedicated to a municipality, there's provisions for what happens there. The reason for the inequity in the in the maintenance agreement is WCC position was they are providing those three pieces of property at no cost to the IDA. They felt that in doing that they should get a break on the maintenance fees. Requirement indemnity insurance provisions. Most importantly, which is the last thing that we insisted on, was if the Fort Edward LVDC property, in the event of the sale, conveyance, acquisition, or transfer of the FALDBC site in whole or in part to or by any persons, trust, entities, public authorities, municipal entities, and like any and all expenses of the agency as set forth herein shall be borne by and paid for by said person, trust, entity, public authority, municipal entities, and the like, having taken title to the Fort Edward LVDC site. In the event that the FLDBC site is sold to, conveyed to, or acquired, or transferred to more than one party, or later subdivided, said agency expenses shall be prorated among said parties accordingly. Our anticipation when we started this agreement that we were going to take possession of the property, and hence we would own the property currently owned by Fort Edward LVDC in part or in whole. That is still may be the case, but if another entity buys that whole property, the IDA loses its ability to regain what we invest in the maintenance of the road. And we feel, after consulting with Kara, that why should the IDA, who's not going to gain any benefit from owning that, from maintaining that bridge, should we continually support the maintenance of that road when we will only be a vehicle to provide a permanent easement for the entire, what do they call it? Durable access to that property. So that's why we put that provision in. If we're not making any money or don't have the potential of making any money on that property, why should we why should we incur all the expenses? Especially since our income stream is unknown in the future. So that's what's covered in the easement agreement. Do we have any questions on that? Okay. I would ask for resolution. Motion to introduce, but motion to resolution of the counties of Warren, Washington Industrial Development Agency approving of an easement agreement concerning Lock 8 Way. Could I have such motion, please? Motion by Dan Bruno.
Second.
Second by Mike Grasso. Any further discussion? I'll ask for roll call. Allowing me to sign this easement agreement.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Mike Grasso,
Yes.
Cindy Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Nick Hymato,
Yes.
Steve O'Brien.
Yes. Carried. Thank you. Keep you up to date with what's going on in that. I will say that we have had an inquiry about submitting a purchase and sale agreement for part of that property. I have not seen, or we have not negotiated, excuse me, Fort Edward LPDC has not negotiated the terms. I have some serious questions that will have to be asked of the potential buyer versus what do their finances look like. Can they carry the burden? Can they carry the load? And I don't want to lock up the property with a purchase and sale agreement unless those conditions are satisfied. There still is the potential that we could take over the balance of that property. I think that the amount of property they're looking for is one of the small building in 5 or 6 acres of land. It's pretty close to that. It might be a little more, a little less. That would pay the taxes. That will allow Fort Edward LBTC to convey the balance of the property to the IDA if we so look at. So let's see what happens. I did have a meeting with a few people that we discussed sort of preliminary of where we want to approach this property, how we want to settle this property, and would we be interested in looking in the future? If in fact the taxes aren't paid by September, should we consider our options in acquiring the property one way or another? We're going to continue those discussions and make recommendations to the board and go from there. So that's where we stand. Any questions? Any other business come before the board? Move to adjourn.
Yes.
Craig Leggett? You're muted, Craig.
Muted, Craig.
Doggone it.
There you go.
Which I wish you can always do that. On the agenda, you had National Grid grant approval. We do not need to do any approval at this
No.
meeting for that grant. The grant itself was approved. Is that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Didn't want to miss any business.
Sorry, I probably worded that wrong.
That's okay, Ally.
Going back to the original request for an adjourn question, motion. Motion by Nick, second by Brian Campbell. I am surprised we're done already. I thought we'd still be going on, so thank you for your time. And I do
Very
need
well
to
run.
call the CDC meeting to order.
We didn't vote on the other one.
Aye.
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 Okay, voted on aye. We're adjourned. Call to order and confirm attendance, please, Ally.
Craig Leggett,
Here.
Michael Biddle,
Here.
Brian Campbell,
Here.
Mike Grasso,
Here.
Ginny Sullivan,
Here.
Mike Wild,
I'm here.
Dan Bruno,
Here.
Nick Caimano,
Yo.
Dave O'Brien.
Here. Need a motion to approve the minutes of November 16th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Nick, second by Mike. Any further discussion, omissions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Current accounts payable, $100 for Mike McCarthy and Conlon.
I'll move
So
it.
moved.
Moved by Nick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Brian. Roll call, please.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Mike Grasso,
Yes.
Ginny Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Nick Caimano,
Yes.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes. Ally, old business is yours again.
So, the regulatory training, Mr. Losa did complete his AVO training. Kudos to him. And apparently, Mr. Leggett has as well. Anyone else that hasn't, please do so and get me what I need to get you off my list.
Top of the New York Department of Labor
Okay, thank you.
rules of the force, they need to be as
The meeting
transparent
schedule,
as they
the
can
motion,
the information on this bill.
motion on the meeting schedule for 2021.
They have.
So moved.
Moved by Brian, second by Mr. Biddle. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have the 2019 letter of engagement for Form 990 from WDR. Ally, that's your bailiwick.
Yes, in that email, you guys should have, I included what, Mr. Coombs had completed for the 2018 990 that needed to be sent. In case you wanted to look it over and had any questions. And also included is the letter of engagement for him to also do the 2019 now. Form 990. If you recall, the 2018 letter of engagement had a price range between 500 and 750. He wasn't sure how much it was going to actually cost until he actually did that report, which turned out to be $600. So this letter of engagement that you guys will be voting on today does specify 600 this time.
The
And
motion,
then we'll be all caught up.
need a motion to approve that?
I'll move and then I have a comment.
Mr.
I'll
Craig
second.
made a motion, Nick did a second. Your comment?
Well, they have a bunch of us down for a quarter of an hour a week. What if we put in more time than that? Does that make a difference on the form?
I can double check with Mr. Combs, but this is basically, I don't want to say proof. I'm really bad at explaining things, but it's just because the CDC is a nonprofit organization. And so it's basically recording the time of the volunteers. I'm not sure if there's any specific amount that needs to be red flagged or whatever.
Okay.
But I can check with Colin.
Nah, not a big deal. Just we're all equals there, it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman,
No.
Carried.
Get Dan
Opposed?
Bruno.
Huh?
Carried. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Before you go, Kara, this is the time when we usually get the party from FMBF. We don't have it this year. So why don't you go to your board and ask the chairman of the board to send us each a $50 bill?
I'll see what I can do.
I'll second that.
I'm really sorry. I love a good
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Chris.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Well, I don't know about that, but Merry Christmas.
Yeah, gotta be better than this year.
Thank
It
you
must
all.
be. See you later.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Take care.